We'll continue from where we stopped the other day, but today we'll be looking at something more realistic and associated to our main scope of study. So, earliest in our class, when we commenced, we learned model development, where we develop machine learning models, and I taught us how to export it. So I'll be tracking back to one of our classes which we did in the past, where we developed a machine learning algorithm for predicting shoe size. So today, by the end of this class today, we'll be able to develop the objective of our today's class, or aim of our today's class is for us to develop a web application that we can use for the web application can be shared with our friends, not just for ourselves. We can share it with our friends so that they can utilize the machine learning algorithm we develop to predict their shoe size. So that's what we'll be looking at today. So for the machine learning model, I will not waste time there. I will just do a run through because it's something we already know, and then I run the code, export my model, then we'll now go back to the Streamlit app development, and then we integrate the model and the working system. Okay, so if you recall, this was the data set we used when we were trying to predict shoe size. The data set has height and then sex number and then your shoe size. So those were the three entities that we have in our data set. So basically, it was the same data set I used again. So I just imported our libraries, normal way we're doing it, imported the data set which I've uploaded here. Then I did some exploration on the data sets. These are basic things we've been doing, and which we did already in our last class. I just did some visualization to see how many males and females are within the data set. I checked the concentration of height, that's the distribution of height. You can see majority of height in the data set are between 150 to 200. Then we have size distribution. A lot of people have size from between, you can see this pointing at 34, from size 34 to size 50. That's the range of shoe sizes that are within the data set. And then I checked for outliers. I discovered there were some outliers in the data set. You can see in the height there were some outliers. Look at them. So since there were heights in the data set, I decided to remove outliers. If you recall back when we did our outlier removal, I told us there's what we call IQR, that is interquartile range method of removing outlier. So that was what I applied here, and then I removed all the outliers within the data set. Here I just check for a correlation between the features. Now if you see, the shoe size and height has a highly positive correlation of 0.77. Now if you recall back in our class then when we were doing correlation checking on how to check relationship, when you want to do feature selection, I told you at times you can use through correlation, and I said any number, if two numbers have a correlation closer to 1, it means they are positively correlated. And what that means is when one number increase, the other one too increase. So you can see height and shoe size have a correlation of 0.77. It means the higher the height, the higher your shoe size. Whereas the gender has a correlation of minus 0.78. It means the higher the gender, the lower the shoe size. And within our data set, if you recall, then I told you 2 was used to represent female, whereas 1 was used to represent male. Normally in label encoding, since F comes before M, 1 was supposed to be used for female, then 2 should be used for male. But from where we got the data, if you remember, then I told you, I said the person that encoded the data, he interchanged it. So he set 1 to be for male, 2 to be for female. So that's why you are seeing that negative correlation. So since 2 stands for female, it means females have smaller shoe size compared to males. That's what this heat map is telling us. So next, I splitted my data into dependent and independent. So to split into independent, I drop the size since that's what I'll be predicting. And then I pass the size to my Y variable. So you can see this is my Y. Then I splitted my data into training and testing, and I gave it a test size of 20%. That is 20% of the data will be used for testing purpose, while 80% will be used for training. So I decided to develop some algorithms. I developed logistic regression algorithm. This was the performance. I did another algorithm called elastic net algorithm. I did ridge regression. I did random forest regression. But among them all, from what I did so far, logistic regression had the highest performance, linear regression, had the highest performance of 75.13%, or I would say 75.14%. The next one close to it was ridge regression, it has 75.11%. So it was the logistic regression algorithm and the linear regression algorithm that I exported. So, but before that, let me rerun everything so that our model can be exported out. So after developing the model, I decided to export the model. How do we export? If you recall, I told you whenever you want to export an algorithm, you use Pico. So I'm coming. Okay. I don't know why this is hanging here. To export the algorithm, I used oops, I'm coming. There was something I didn't do here. All right. So back to what I was saying. After developing the model, I decided to export the model. And how do we export? I told you, in order for you to export, we always use Pickle. So you can see I imported Pickle, and then I said with open the name of my Pickle file. Remember, I told you this name depends on you who is building it. If you like, you can use any name here, but the extension must be .pkl. The extension must be .pkl. Okay, the extension must be .pkl. So I said with open model.pkl, wb as f. That is, I want this file to be opened as f. So that f represents this model.pkl, and this wb means write binary. And what do I say write binary means? Write means to write something inside a file. But if you change it to be in binary form, that's wb. The binary means you want to encode it so that someone cannot understand what it means. Just for security purpose. That's why at times we write data in binary format. Like your WhatsApp messages and Facebook messages, they are always encoded in binary format so that they cannot be altered, or someone cannot interfere between the data. So that is the work of this WB. So I said I want to write into this model.pkl, but I want the format should be in binary format. So if I open, you can see the writings are not clear. That's because it has been encoded. I didn't write it in binary, you see the algorithm written inside. But since I wrote it in binary format, it will be encoded. And then how do you make sure the model is written into the file. You say pickle.dump and then the name of your model, comma, the name of the file that you want the algorithm to be written into. And remember, we represented the file as F. So that was what I did. So after that, I downloaded the model. Already, I've done that already in the morning. I just want to show you what I did. Look at it here. Already, I've done that and I've downloaded the model here already. Then the file I'm showing you online, this is the file here already in my work. So that's the first thing to do. Now, after that, I'm done with that phase. I've downloaded my model. If it's yours, if you want to download it, you can just click on these three dots here. That's if you are doing it on your own end and you want to download the model, just click on download. So you will now go to where you want to save the model. That also, I don't want to alter the previous model in my algorithm. So we are done with this file. So I'm closing that. Now back to the main file, which was what the file we worked on last week. Last week, the file we worked on last week. This time around, I left some things, whereas I changed some sections. So just like I told us in our last class, I said if you want to build a Streamlit application, I told you can use your VS Code, but since some of us are using phone, in order for us to do that, that was why I used the Google Colab environment. So I said whenever you want to run it, you want to run Streamlit application, your Google Colab environment, the first thing you have to do is for you to install Streamlit and this PyNgrok. Those are the two important things you need to install first. And how do you install that? You say !pip install, then Streamlit space PyNgrok. I told you can install multiple things at the same time by just giving space. Maybe let's assume I want to install pandas, I want to install numpy, I want to install scikit-learn. All I can do them at once like this. But already I have these three installed, so there is no need. So I need to run that first. So I will allow you to run. So you can see it has been okay, it's still running, it's installing. Okay, so it's done installing. It's done installing. Then the second step, already since in our last class, you remember I told you if you don't have an ngrok account, you need to go to this website link and set up your account, and then you go to this link and get your authentication code. So already, since I have an authentication code, I'm not going to repeat this. You are doing this only once in your first code. It's the same authentication key you always use anytime you want to do the work, unless if you want to change credentials. So after this step 1, I'll just jump to my step 3, where I will configure the ngrok by adding my authentication key. So this was the authentication key, if you recall. That was what I got after visiting this website in our last class. So the moment you go to this link, you see this authentication key. So I copied mine and pasted it here. So I will authenticate it so that my ngrok, which I've installed, will be synchronized with this key. Now after that, we need to launch the ngrok tunnel using this code. So remember, anytime you want to work on your Streamlit application, the only thing that will be different from your own file and mine is this authentication key. It's just this key. You create your own. Although even if you use my own, it will still work for you, but it's best you use your own because we have different applications. You are doing yours different, I'm doing mine different. But every other code here will remain the same. This one, you can remove it since you already have an account. This one will remain the same. This one will remain the same. And this last step will remain the same. The only place that will always change is this place because this is where you'll be building your app. So the one you have in file 1 will be different from what you have in file 2, will be different from what you have in file 3 because this is where you do the main building of your application. So let's initialize the tunnel. I've initialized the tunnel. So before I will jump this step and then come back to this last step, I will then run it so that I can initialize my application. So back to our main app now. Now, if you remember that day I told you writing this thing at the starting of your file is very important. Percent write file app.py. Now, this app.py is the name of my own file. You can give your own file a different name. But mind you, any name you give your app here, you must change it here. This app.py. If your own is test.py, you call it test.py. If you say shoe app.py, here too must be shoe app.py. So the name you use here must correspond with the name you use here. So please take note of that. So today we'll be looking at so just like I said today we'll be building a web application that will allow us to predict the shoe size of a person using his gender and height. So from the model we developed and the previous, although I've closed it, let me open it here. Let me open it in VS Code. So from when we were developing the model, you agree with me that it was only two independent variables we collected from user. Let me take us down there. And those two independent variables were height and gender. So it means in our application, we are going to build only two widgets that will accept input from users. I didn't say we are building only two widgets in the entire app. Widgets to accept input from users are two. One will be to accept the gender, and then two will be to accept the height of a person. So if you recall in our last class, I taught us different types of widgets. I said we have text input, we have number input, right? So since we are trying to accept height is a number input, but you can use text input for the height, then collect it and then convert it to an integer. Or you can use number input. Number input automatically knows it's a number. Then for the gender, we can use radio button for the gender, or we can use select box. That is a drop down menu where we can select male or female. If you remember, we did all those things in our last class. So that's what we'll be doing today. So, but before that, I decided that I want my application to have if you remember in our last class, the very last thing we did, I taught us how to build an app that has more than one page, that has like 2 pages, right? That was what we did. So I used something called a sidebar. If you remember, we used a sidebar that day, and that day I told us how to use a sidebar. In order for you to use a sidebar, you first of all initialize the sidebar. So if you check, I said st.sidebar.title navigation. Now, why did I give the sidebar a title navigation? I want so that my user can see that this is a navigation menu where you can select. So, but in our last class, when I was trying to create the pages, I said st.sidebar.select box. It was select box I did. So it gave me an option of drop down where I can select page 1, page 2. But today, I'm using a radio button. So you can use either a select box to create a sidebar, or you can use a radio button. So in our last class, we used a select box. Today we'll be using a radio button. So I said page to be equal to st dot radio button. So let me do something. Let me comment all these other part of the code. Let's be seeing the pages gradually before we okay. So I said st dot sidebar dot radio button, and then remember I told you every widget has a label. The first item is the label. What is the label? Label is what will appear for user to see, right? And then a radio button, I told you after you've given it a label, you give it what we call options. What are options? Options are the different items that should appear on the radio button. So today, since we want the radio buttons to represent our pages, I said the first page should be an introduction page, and then the second page should be shoe size prediction. So I've run it. So because of this percent write file app.py I did, this whole thing will be written into my app.py. So if I open it, you can see it has been written into my app.py. So how do we open the application? I said we'll go through this link. So let's click on it. and I'll allow it to load. Okay. Okay, now you can see our menu bar has been created. Our sidebar, you can see we have that navigation, which is the title of the entire page. That go to text we wrote, this go to text, which was the label, and then these options, which represent the two pages. You can see them here. We have the introduction and we have the shoe size prediction, which were the two pages. And I told you here you can collapse it and you can enlarge it. So we've created our two pages. So our main app will be represented here. So let's start working on our page one. That is our introduction page. So in the introduction page, remember I told you, since you are creating a sidebar, if you want to access or you want to work on a particular page, you use if statement. So you just say if page equal, then the name of the page you want to work on. So the first page, I want to work on the introduction page. So I said if page equal introduction dot dot. So first thing, remember that day I told us how to use Markdown. I told you Markdown gives you flexibility to build, to incorporate HTML inside your application. And then you can set some properties of your HTML code inside your main app. So let me do something here. Okay, so now in our main page, I started by using a markdown. I want my page to have a bold, a big writing that says shoe size prediction. That is the writing I want my page to have. So what I did was I created a div. I created a div. Now in HTML, there's what we call a div. A div is like a section. You create a particular section. So I created a section and I said for that section, I want the text to be aligned to the center. What it means, I want the text to be centralized in the center of the page, and I want the text to have a color white, and then the background of that div, that's the section, I want its background to be black. When we run it, you'll see that. Then next, the writing itself. Look at the writing here. I said this is what I want to be the writing. This one, there's no need for this since I've already set color to be white here. So I said I want the writing to be shoe size prediction. Now in HTML, there is what we call the same way in Streamlit we say st.title. In HTML, there is what we call headings. We don't call them titles in HTML, we call them headings. And we have 6 different types of heading: H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. H1 is the biggest title, is the biggest, is the largest among 2. So if you go to H2, the size will reduce. If you go to H3, the size will reduce. H6 is the smallest. So I want you to pick the biggest size of the writing and then display for me. And I want that writing to be inside that div section. So I want to see this shoe size prediction, but the background that this shoe size prediction app should have should be black. That is what this div means. So that was why I wrote it here. So if you recall, our markdown, we always put it in quotation mark, the same way we did in our last class. Then after that, I'll put comma on save allow HTML equal to true. What it means is allow HTML code to be imputed in my application. So let's first of all run that. Let me comment this. So let's run that and then let's refresh our application and see. Oh, sorry. I don't know why it's taking a bit of time to load today. Okay, can you all hear me? I think before there was a network issue. Okay, so let me rerun it. Doesn't want to apply. I'm coming. Let me restart the. Okay, or let me just finish explaining this at once and then I rerun everything at once. Okay, let me finish the entire section. Okay, so that was what I first did. I want a write up shoe size prediction app, but this write up should be inside a black background. Then the next thing I did was I added an image. Now the name of the image is shoesize.jpg. So I will need to upload that image first. I'll need to upload that image first. So I'll navigate to where the image is. So this is the image. I downloaded it from the internet. Okay. So I downloaded it. Now I've uploaded it within my environment. So if you are trying to build your own application, if you have any image you download and you want to use it, please always upload it first here. If not, it will raise an error for you. Always upload. So if you remember, I said whenever you want to add an image to your application, you always use st.image, right? And then you pass the name of the image. If it is an online link, if the image has an online link, you just put the link of the image. But this one, I downloaded it and I uploaded. So I just copied, or I can just copy part of image like this and then I include it. But I didn't want to include the part. Why? Because when I will convert the application, there will be an issue if I use this Google Colab part. So that was why I just put the name of the file, because I want to put everything in the same folder. Then comma, after passing the part, you pass this use container with equal to true. So that was the second thing I did. So first of all, here I created a write-up that says shoe size prediction app, but the write-up is in a black background. Secondly, I added an image. And then lastly, I also created another write-up again that says this app can predict your shoe size by simply using your height and gender. But I used H5. Remember, I told you we have different headings. We have from H1 to H5. Here I used H5. And then also I said I want the text to be centralized. But this one, I want its own color. That is, I want the write-up color to appear as green, not as white as it was in the previous app. So let me run that. Then let me run this. So let me refresh application now. Aha. So you can see that first div that I created up here. This first div I created, which I said should have a black background, and this write-up show shoe size prediction app. You can see this is the write-up, and you can see the write-up was on a black background. Then second line, I added an image. You can see this is the image, and then in the last line, I added a write-up. This app can predict your shoe size by simply using your height and gender. You can see that this is it. So I've finished working on my introduction page. I've finished working on my introduction page. Now the second page, I want to work on this shoe size prediction. You can see now when I selected that, there is nothing. I've not worked on that page. So now let's work on that page. So if you want to work on that page, let me remove this. So now let's work on that second page. So to work on that second page, so since we've finished working on the first page, I said if you are finished working on one page, if you want to work on another page, since you've used if statement already, next one you are not going to use if statement. You have to use elif now. So you call page and then the name of your next page. If you have another page again, you say elif page equal, then the name of the next page. So the name of my second page is shoe size prediction. So now to work on the next page, first of all, I need to import my model.pickle file that I exported, if you remember. So I will need to import it here. So I will import, I will upload. I'll go to the folder where I downloaded the model. This is the model. So I'll upload it into my environment. So I've uploaded the model. Remember, I told you you can export using pickle.dump. That is how you export. But if you want to import, you always use pickle.load. If you remember, I showed you how to export and I also showed you how to import the model if you want to import it back and use. So, but it's the same procedure. So if you are importing now, if you are exporting, you use write binary. But if you are importing, you use read binary. So that is why I said with open model.pickle, because that's the name of my file. Remember, whatever name you use to save your model is the same name. So if I say shoe size.pickle, here I'll say shoe size.pickle. But since I call it model.pickle, I'll say model.pickle, then comma. Since we want to use it inside our app now, we are not exporting it, we are importing. So that was why I said write binary, which is RB, and then as F. So this time around, instead of you to just say pickle.load, then the name of your model, no, you need to pass your model name to something. So me, I decided to call it model. You can call it anything. You can call it logistic regression, or you can say my model or anything. Me, I decided to call it model. So how do you load the model? In order for you to load it, you say pickle.load. If you are exporting inside your Jupyter Notebook environment, when you are building it, you say pickle.dump. That is, you are exporting the model out for it to be able to download. But since you want to use it inside your application, now you load it. So you say pickle.load F. Remember, this F stands for the entirety of this file. So you say pickle.load F. So you can see load accepts only one thing, but dump accepts two things. Dump accepts the name of the algorithm and the file that you want to drop the algorithm, that you want to dump the algorithm inside. But load only wants the name of the file. Why? Because the algorithm has been dumped inside of it. So it wants to read the file. That is, it wants to read the model and then be able to use the model. So that was the first thing I did. I imported my model. So my algorithm now, this model, anytime I said model, it's making reference to that my logistic regression algorithm that I worked on in the other file. So I've imported my model. Now, mind you, this model importation, it's not a must that you must do it at the beginning here. I can do it before my prediction down here. I can do it there, or I can decide to do it up here. Anyway, so now we are trying to build the interface of the second application. Of the second page, that is this second shoe size prediction page, which is empty. So how do we do that? First of all, I created a title. I said I want an st.title to appear in the page, and the title should be shoe size prediction app. That's the first thing. And then I created a markdown. And then what did I say the markdown should be? The markdown should write enter your height and gender to predict your shoe size. And then for the markdown, I want its color to be yellow, and I want the font size to be 1.5 REM. We have REM is a representation of writing and font size. We usually have different formats. We have pixels, we have REM, we have EM. They are different. I just decided to use the REM. That one is something in HTML. When you learn HTML, you have idea about all these things. So I created the markdown here. So let me comment these two guys first. So I created these first two. So let's see that in our main app. So you can see those two things we created, you can see they have reflected in our application. So now let's go ahead to create the widget that will accept input from user. So remember, our algorithm accepts two things. When we created it, we need height and gender to make prediction. So the number, mind you, the number of widgets that should be in your application must tally with the number of things that your algorithm will accept. If your algorithm is accepting two things, don't go and create form widgets and then you say at the end of the day you pass it to your algorithm. There will be an error, there will be an issue. However, you can create multiple widgets, but note, it is only those ones that your algorithm was built on that you will use. For instance, I can decide to say, enter your name, enter your height, enter your gender, stuff like this. I created 3, but that your name, I'm not going to use it in my application, in my prediction at all. I only want you to enter it, but I'm not going to use it. Maybe the only thing I want to is maybe at the end of the day I can say JC. For instance, if I say enter your name, maybe at the end of the day I can say something like JC, your shoe size is. So there I can use my application to output my name that I collected to output something. Not that I will use it inside my model. I can't use it. The only thing I will use inside my model is my height and my gender. That's the only thing. So I created my first variable, height. Remember, since it's a numeric number, I use st.number input. And then the label I want to appear is height in cm. Let me just say enter height. Let me say enter height. And then bracket I put in cm. That is, I want the person to enter his height in centimeter. Then I gave a maximum value. The maximum value of the height, let me reduce it. Let me say 70. That is the minimum, minimum, not maximum. The minimum height that someone can enter should be 70. And then the maximum height should be 1000. Then comma value equal to 150. So this value that I say 150 is like the default value. That is when I load the page, the height that user should see should be 150. That is before the user can change it. 150 will be like the default value there. Then I decided to create my gender widget. And since it's a gender, I want somebody to select whether you are a male or female. Those are the only two gender we know. So for that, I did an st.select box. And then the label I passed was gender. And then what were the values of that's like the options. Remember I told you a select box has options. So what were the options? The options I gave were male, females. But remember we can do it like this. Let me do it like this. Options equal to, this was how we did it in our previous class, right? Yeah. So like this. Then I did something here called gender code. Now, why do I create a gender code here? I created a gender code because I want to map these options here. Remember, when I build my application, male and female, if I want to use it to make prediction, my algorithm doesn't know male and female. Remember, we have to label encode. So this one was a simpler method of label encoding I did here. So anytime you have categories like this, you can manually label encode them without using label encoder. How do you do that? I say game code, gender code should be equal to. Now I said 1 if gender equal male. What it means is if the gender of the person is male, it should pass 1. That is, anytime the person selects male, instead of male, to my model, 1 will be passed to it. Then else 2. It means any other thing. But let's assume you have another option. If I have another option, I can say elif. I can say elif. I'll now say gender equal. So inside I will say female like this. And then I will now pass another one. But since I have just 2, I will just say else 2. What it means is the remaining gender that is left. Remember, we've already given male a value 1. So the other gender that is left, which is female, we should give it a value 2. So that was the label encoding I did here. Then I went ahead. So first of all, let's run our application first before we run the prediction box, and let's see how our app looks for now. Now you can see, remember I set a default value as 150. You can see 150 was default. So you can see the gender. I can select female or I can select male. So the moment I select male to my algorithm, number 1 will be passed. Then the moment I select female to my algorithm, number 2 will be passed. So how do we make the prediction? The next step now is how we make the prediction. How do we make the prediction? Remember, when we are doing it in our normal, where we are creating our model, whenever I want to make a prediction, we say model.predict, right? So it was the same thing I did here. It was the same thing. Let me just clean it and then do it afresh. So I said my prediction. I call my prediction. My prediction. I give it a variable name prediction. So how will I use my algorithm? I will say model.predict, and then in brackets. Remember, since is a value I want to collect and predict. Remember, I told you whenever you want to make prediction of values, you use 2 square brackets. You can see that was why I put 2 square brackets. Then inside, you pass the names of your variable. The first variable that user will be given is height. Then the second variable, it will no longer be gender. Why? Because if I pass gender, strings will be what will be given. But rather, I'm to use gender code because I've given this gender code will represent what is being selected in this gender. So I'm going to pass it height, gender code here. So this is my prediction here. Then remember, when we're building the shoe size prediction app, let me go back there. Now I set everything to be as type int. Why do I do that during the prediction? We did that because we want, if you check, all the shoe size were strictly whole numbers, right? So in order for it to make it not to appear with points something, I told you always use .as type int. If you remember, I spoke about that in the past. So whenever you want something to appear as a whole number, you pass this as type int to it. So for instance, let me see. Let's say 40.1. Oh, let's just do it in here. Oops, sorry. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to be I want to show something. Okay, now look at, why do we pass it as type int? Because whatever prediction that your algorithm does, it predicts it as an array. What is array? An array is like a list, but normally the predictions are in form of NumPy array. So if you want it to appear as a whole number like this, like for instance, if you can see this number 40.1, as I put this dot as type int, it appeared as 40. If I put 40.0, if you run it, it will appear as 40. It will appear as a whole number. And that was how our heights were represented in the main data file. So in order for us to achieve that, you can see I converted my prediction to as type int. Look at it. I said prediction. There is this prediction, and I'll say dot as type int. Or let's even do it like this. Let's reduce everything. Let's pass it here. Let's pass it here. So whatever prediction that is being done, it will be converted to integer here. So in the second line, I said prediction to be equal to str in bracket prediction. Now, why do I? Okay, there's no need. Let me remove this. There's no need for that. There's no need for that. There's no need for that. All right. So this prediction now will hold the value that our model is going to predict. So the last thing we need to create in our application is our button. So how do I create the button? I told you whenever you want to create a button and you want it to do something, you just say if and then st.button in bracket, you now say the name of the button. Or I told you, you can decide to create the button up. Maybe here, let me call it btn. Maybe here I can say btn should be equal to something like this. So btn, I created a button. Or let's create the button up here first. Okay, so I created a button, that is the button I want to appear on the application. To create a button, we say st.button, right? And then this is the label I want to appear on the button, predict shoe size. So let's first of all comment here and then see how the button looks like. Let's see how the button looks like. So you can see, but for now the button is not activated. So you can see the button cannot do anything. The button cannot do anything for now because it hasn't been activated. So let's activate that. So to activate the button and allow it to work, we'll go ahead and use our if statement to make the button workable. So you can see I said if btn, that is this button that we created, if btn ... then now you write what you want the button to do after it has been clicked on. So what do I want the button to do? I said I want the button to write something. st.write predicted shoe size is ... then space, comma, then you should output that prediction. Whatever is being predicted here should be outputted here. So since we've done that, let's run it. Now let's see our application. So like, let me enter my height and my gender. Actually, my shoe size is 41. That's my actual shoe size. So let's see whether our application will predict it correctly. I've entered my height, 165 centimeter, and my gender is male. So let's okay. It predict, but okay, let's see something. I'm supposed to convert this to a string. Now, the reason why this appeared in a table is because I didn't convert it. You can see it predicted it correctly, but because I didn't convert it to a string, that is why it appeared in a table. So we need to convert this to a string. So let's cut this. So we put str and then we paste this. Now, the moment we do this, it's going to work properly now. So let's rerun it. So let's do that again. Now you can see, okay, it's still appearing in bracket. So we need to remove the bracket that is there. So in order for us to remove, I will do something here. Let me be sure this works first. So why do I put in bracket 0. What I did here was I wanted to bring out just the value that is inside the array. Remember, whenever it does a prediction, it usually brings a value inside a square bracket. That was why when I converted it to string, you still saw a square bracket the other time. So if you want to bring out only the value without the bracket, you just put square bracket and then 0. So it's going to, you remember, index of every number, every list always start from index 0. So I want you to bring only the value that is at index 0, or you can say index -1. So that was why I put square bracket 0. That is, I want you to bring out only the value that is inside there for me. So when we run it, it ran now, and then our application is up and running. So this is how you can build a real world application that you can share with your friends in order for them to use your application. So I think our meeting will end any time soon. So before we call it a day, there's something I want to show us. I want to show us how to, you can see it predicted my shoe size correctly, 41. My shoe size is 41 and it predicted it 41. So I'm going to end this meeting now, and then I will share another link which you can all join, and then I will show you how to convert this application into a link that you can share with your friends and everyone in order for them to use the application, even without, not necessarily you must be the one that will be there before they can use it. Just the same way you can access any website from any part of the world. So I'm going to show you how you can convert the application so that any other person can use the application. So, everything was running well. So I believe now if I ask us to build a real world application and then incorporate your machine learning algorithm, I believe that won't be an issue for us. So remember, I told you the number of widgets you use depends on the number of inputs your application has. And the number of inputs your model will receive, or the way you structure the model, the way you build it. Let's assume it's a deep neural network classification. Okay, let me give a practical example. Let's say that monkeypox detection algorithm we build, monkeypox, normal disease, measles, and chickenpox. For those type of work, if you want to create an input box, it is just that file uploader that you will use. That's just the only thing you will do. And then you will now pass. If you remember, when we build the model, when I built the model, I showed you how you can import an image and then use it for prediction. So it is just that same code you just copy. The only thing you just need within the interface of your application is how to upload an image. So the moment you upload it, you just pass the name of the file to that URL. So aside that, if you are trying to build other applications, maybe all the other algorithms or models you have built, like student performance, I know it was one of the work I gave you. I think we've done a work on heart disease. So all those other works we've done, you can build a real application for them. So if you build an application for them, the number of widgets you create that will accept data depends on the number of features that you selected for your algorithm to work with. So that is that. So all these introduction page are just additions that you feel maybe you want to add to your application. So now we finish running our application. The next thing now is for us to deploy. So just like I said you can share the application with someone. Whenever you want to make your application shareable with someone, it's called deployment. You are deploying the algorithm. So Streamlit has a community or a cloud server that allows you to deploy your application and make it shareable. So first of all, these three things here are very important. After you finish running your app, you need to download these things. You will download it and put it in the folder So first of all, you need to create a folder. Create a folder on your desktop or anywhere where you put all your files. Me, I've already created one. I call it a shoe app. So I'll send this there. Then this my model is already inside. I can just decide to replace it. You can see it. I'll save it there. Let me just replace it. And then this image also, since I've used it, I will also pass it there. Because all these files are very important when you are trying to deploy your application. So that is that. So I'm closing this application, these apps. We are no longer using them. So now I opened a different Google account. Why did I do that? I did that because I want to show you how you can start from scratch. Now, I shared a link earlier this morning. I said you should create an account on GitHub. So you go to github.com. If you don't have an account, create an account. But the moment you've created an account, this will be the page you see. So I will not teach you how to create an account. It's straightforward. You can create an account on your own, use email, password, you set everything. That's all. So the moment you set, this will be your dashboard. That's if you don't have a GitHub account. This will be the dashboard you see to be empty like this. But if you have a GitHub account already and maybe you've put something there, you just go to this place, this plus. You click on it, you will see new repository. Click on new repository. And then let's allow you to load. So in our new repository, I'll give my repository name. Now, what's the name of a repository? Repository is like a folder or it's like a project. A folder that holds your entire project for you. So the project we just did is we built a shoe size prediction app. So I can give my repository that name, shoe size prediction. It mustn't be long, but it can be very short. Me, I just decided to make it long, like the shoe size prediction. Leave it as public. All these things are optional. You can skip them. These add readme, skip them. Important thing, you set it, leave it as public. That's important. And then you click on create repository, and then you allow the repository to create. Now this is the repository that has been created. The next thing you have to do is go to upload an existing file, because we already have our files that we want to upload here. So you click on upload an existing file. Now go to this choose your file. Now I'm going to select all these things that are inside this shoe app folder. Now this running Streamlit app 2 was that Google Colab file that we built our app inside, the one that I was writing the code inside and then running before I go to where we set our ngrok and everything. This is the file. Then this one was the one I used in building my model. Then this is my model. Then this is my main app.py. That is the file we're writing things to, and then I exported it. And then this was that image we worked with. Now there's another file I created called requirements.txt. I'll open it and then I'll show us what the file contains. So I'm going to mark all of them. I'll just do Ctrl A, highlight everything, and then I click on open. So everything will upload. So you can see all the 6 files has been uploaded. So you commit changes. So everything has been uploaded. Now let me open this requirement.txt and then explain what that is. Let me rename it. Okay, now there's a little, let me rename the file. Okay, let me just delete the file and then create it afresh because the name was double. The txt.txt was double and to create an issue. Okay, now let me explain. Now all these other files are the default files that we imported. Now we need to create a requirement.txt. Now why is a requirement.txt file important? It's important because if you want to deploy your application, you will need to tell your Streamlit server that there are some libraries that I used inside my application and I want you to include them. So you create this. So in order for me to create my requirement.txt file, now I can create it inside here. I'll just click on add file. I'll go to create new file. So I'll have a new environment here. Then here, this is where you write the name requirements.txt. Then I'll come here. Now, what are the libraries that I use? One of the library I used was scikit-learn. Scikit-learn. Please make sure you spell it correctly. Now, why am I using scikit-learn? Because that logistic regression that we exported in model.pickle, we created it using sklearn. So you don't write sklearn short form, always write the full name, scikit-learn. So why are we doing that? We are trying to tell Streamlit that before you run this application, you need to install this library. Then secondly, there was a place that I use NumPy. So I will need to put NumPy too. And then I use Pickle, although Pickle will be automatically included. So these are. Then lastly, we use Streamlit for building our application. So you need to write all these things. So if there's, if there's another library you use anytime you are building your application, always include it here. So for instance, let's say you use Plotly, you must write Plotly. If you use Pandas, you must write Pandas. If you use Seaborn, you must include it. So you need to include them all like this, and then so even if I include them in my application, there is no problem. Although I didn't use them, but there's no problem. The important thing is this Streamlit must be there, this NumPy must be there, this scikit-learn must be there. This Pickle is an application that is not a third-party library. It comes with Python. Now, why am I importing these ones? I'm including these ones because they are third-party. What are third-party? Third-party library is any library that you install using pip. You say pip install, then the name, we call them third-party library. So anything that you do not pip install, that one is a follow-com. Is a follow-com library. It came with Python. So that one you can leave it the way it is. But any other one that is not a follow-com, is a third party, you need to put it in your requirements.txt file. So all these other ones like this, they are third party. All these ones, it is only Pickle. So that was why I needed to write all their names. Although all these Seaborn, Plotly, I didn't use them, but I just put them because I just want to put them. So after that, you commit change and then you commit. So you can see requirement.txt now has been created here. You can see. So the next thing now is we are done with our GitHub account. So if I go to this, let me click back to my name. You'll see a repository. You can see a repository has been created. And when I click on it, you'll see all the files inside. So that's your step one. Create a repository, put all your files together with the requirement.txt file. So what are the files? Your main app. This app.py is the most important one, followed by your model, followed by any image that you use, then followed by the requirement.txt. These other Jupyter files, they are optional. I just want to put them in, but those ones are optional. If you like, don't put them. The app will run, but it's better you put them for just structuring your repository well. So you are done with that. The next thing is go to streamlit.io. This link, I will also share it to you in the group. Go to streamlit.io, then you hit enter. So the moment the page loads, you see an interface like this. If you are using phone, I know you see a smaller. Let me change it to mobile view. So if you are using a phone, this is how you see it. You see something like this. So you just click on this drop down, and then you see this free. Click on it. You see that free, so you click on it there. Aha. So you can see. Now, the moment you click on free, this is what you see. Now, me is because I already have an account. That is why it took me here. But you, if you don't have an account, it will ask you to log in. Let me see. Let me click here again. You will see something. It will ask you to sign up. Sorry, I'm coming. I need to log it out. I want to show you that place. Let me log this out. Okay, let me sign out. Good. Aha. The moment you click, let me remove this. So the moment you click free, aha, this is the next interface you see. So you click on continue to sign in. Please take note of what I'm going to do here. Do not sign in with your Google or email. No. Always sign in with your GitHub. That is this GitHub that you've logged in here. Always sign in with your GitHub. So I'll click on continue with GitHub. So the moment I click on continue with GitHub, it will redirect and ask me to grant permission to my GitHub. So wait for it to load. It's redirecting. Okay, it's because me I've already logged in once with it. But yours, the moment you click, it will ask you to authorize. Click on authorize. It will still ask you again to authorize. Click anything it asks you, click on the green one, the authorization, click on it. Then the moment it loads, it will bring you to this page. So the moment you are in this page, you click on create app. This is where you create your app. And then you click on deploy now. So here, you can see, since I connected it with my GitHub, so you can see my repositories. So if I have plenty repository, if I click here, I will see all the list of my repository. But you look for this particular repository that you are trying to convert to an app. The name is shoe size prediction. It's because here I have just one repository. That's why you are seeing only this name. But like in my main GitHub, let me show you something. Let's go back to my main now. Let's go back to my main GitHub. No, I'm doing streamlit.io. Okay. So I'll continue with GitHub. I want to show you this so that when you are trying to do yours, don't be confused, because the more you build, you put more projects to your GitHub, the longer will be the list. So always learn to identify the right repository. Okay, like mine, you can see I've created a lot of apps here. You can see these are different applications I've created. So if I click on this create app, deploy now. Now if I click on this repository, you can see I have plenty repositories here. They are much. So always locate the right one and select. It's not every repository you just click on. So always locate the right repository and select. So this one, because it's the only repository, that's why I seeing just one in the list. So I'll click on it. Then the second thing you need to change is this place, this main file path. You click here. The name of your app.py, if here you use a shoe size app.py, that's the name you see here. So the moment you click here, you see a drop down. So select the main app that has that your Streamlit code. So we called it app.py. So you can see app.py appeared. So I'll click on app.py. Then here is the name you want your app to have. So I can call it maybe SSP. Maybe it's a short form, shoe size prediction. But me, I call it SSP. I'll say SSP app, for instance. That's the name. You can see, say domain is available. So this extension automatically adds to the end of your file. So I'll call it SSP app.streamlit app. Then you click on deploy. So the moment I click on deploy, just watch and see. You see something will be happening. Shortly, you see something will come up by this. You can see manage app. So here you can track the progress of your app development. Okay. I'm coming. Let me check something in this one. Let me remove numpy from this requirement.txt because I think numpy was bringing an error there for me. Okay. Start again. I deploy. I select the name of my app, the SSP app. Then I deploy. Okay, now whenever you're trying to install, you may encounter some errors like this. But basically, this is how you deploy it. So the error, you guys will stay with me. I'm going to fix the error so that should be in case you encounter errors like this, you learn how to fix it on your own. So let's do something. Let me check something. Let's go back to here. It's raising error because I think there was an update they did recently on the versions of this of this sklearn. So we need to check that. I need to check that and see which version did I use in running my application. So we go back to the Google Colab environment and then we check the version. Because you at times you always encounter this error the moment you are trying to deploy your application. You encounter such errors. So let me open the file. Or rather still, what I'll do is I will rerun the application and then re-export my model again. So let me upload the data sets. Okay. Okay, so let me check something here. Okay, I'm trying to check the version of the sklearn that is in the Google Colab environment which we used. So let's look for sklearn. That's letter S. Scikit-learn SC. Okay, this is the version. Scikit-learn version 1.6.1. So let me export this. Let me download this and then replace the algorithm I have here. Okay, so let's go back here. So I will delete this. And then my requirement.txt. I will put this. Let me check the NumPy version also. So whenever you're encountering errors like that, like the one I encountered, you always come here and then check the applications. You check the right versions, NumPy 2.0.2. So I'll go back here and then I put this and then I commit. So I'm back to my application. I will need to upload. I've deleted my model, so I will need to re-upload it again. Upload models instead of create. So I'll choose model. So this was the one I uploaded, not quite long. And then I commit change. Okay, so now let's go back and restart the process. So I select repository, then S, SSP app. Okay, let me change it. Let me just say shoe app. Let me just call it shoe app and then I deploy. So why is it showing me like this? And just restart it. Okay, I'll create app, deploy now. Choose this. So shoe app. I click on deploy. Why does it keep showing this? It's not supposed to. I'm coming. Let's log out and sign in again. Let me refresh this. Okay. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, so I create, deploy now, click here, and say show up, and click on. So you give it some time. Now, the heavier your application, the longer time it will take. The heavier the application, the longer time it will take. So you just give it will soon finish deploying. It will just take a bit of time. Okay, before it finishes, the moment it finishes, that's just the last thing we are doing for today. So the moment it finishes, this URL here is what you can now copy and share with your friends. It's because it hasn't finished yet. If I copy this now and click it in and include it in, let me create an incognito mode. If I should put it here and run it, if it has finished deploying, you see my main application. But since it hasn't finished deploying, I don't think the app will, you see, is still working. So it hasn't finished deploying. The moment it finished deploying, you see the application will be up. So it's taking a bit of time. I don't actually know why. But that is that with the processes of deploying. So let me not waste our time. Once it finished deploying, it will take a bit of time. Once it's finished deploying, I will share the URL with us in the group. But that's the basic step. If you encounter an error, how do I know there was an error? I saw it here, it came up, it showed error, what, it did some writing. So whenever you encounter an error, what you need to do is you go back to where you developed your algorithm, that is back to your Google Colab environment. Then you do in order for you to check the version of the sklearn or any library you use, just do this your exclamation mark and then you write pip freeze. The moment you do pip freeze, it will give you all the libraries that are installed within that environment. So you look for that particular library, because the other time when it raised the error, when I checked by the sidebar here, I saw it was talking about NumPy and it was also talking about sklearn. You see them there, they tell you where the error is. So any library it tells you there's an error with it, you just go back here and then check for that library and then copy the library including the numbers that are beside here. So that was why I say I searched for scikit-learn, which is sklearn. I searched for it, letter S, SC, look at it here. I searched for it and then I copied everything including the number. So that was what I now included in my requirement.txt. So if you check the requirement.txt, that was what I put there. So anytime you encounter an error like that, put the actual version of what you used. So the moment you do that, it's going to resolve the error. Just that it may take a bit of time. You can see it's still loading. It will take a bit of time for it to finish up. So that is that. So the moment it finish running and the app is up, I'll share the link of the app in the group with us. So that is how you can deploy your application anytime you develop it. So with that, I think I've come to the end of today's class. So is there any question or any process you don't understand during the uploading process or anything before we call it a day? Any question or we are good?
No, I wanted to even ask you a question, but I think you've already answered it already about how to know when there's error while trying
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when I developed it. But did you guys notice the error when I ran it the other time?
No, I didn't really notice
Okay,
it.
you
Yeah.
will see it here. The app, normally, if it runs successfully, you are supposed to see where that Streamlit. Shey when we created it here, when we ran it, we normally go to an environment where we see the widget, where we can enter the height, then press button, right? That is what you are
Yes.
supposed to see if it finish running successfully. That is what it's supposed to show. But if it didn't show you something like that, it means there is a problem.
Okay.
So how will
Okay.
you know that? How will you know the problem? Click on this manage app. The moment you click on it,
Yes.
you will see the error here. It will be written